game.
Well, the tailgating was good. We had good food and good beverage, but honestly, I was sitting there in the first half, probably like a lot of people were wondering what in the world was going on. Apparently, no one knew how to stop Kentucky's offense that first half. Got the interception, it seemed like, and I thought it was going to be a good game. From there, we might roll, but from there, Kentucky settled in, and they found something that started working, apparently. They were helped by a lot of missed tackles on defense, that's for sure. And again, you can't spot a team 24 points like that, or 24 points in the first half and expect to be able to come back and win, especially with so many new faces and so many unknowns on offense. That's just not going to work. I will say I'm encouraged what I saw to Perry Orth, actually.
Well, I've said to several people watching it on TV, I didn't see that much drop-off from the quarterback position.
I actually saw an upgrade.
You think so? Okay.
Going back to last year when Connor Mitch got in at Furman, and first game against North Carolina in the first half against Kentucky, I haven't seen 4-star caliber high school quarterback coming in. To me, I think Perry Orth has a slightly stronger arm, not much, but a little bit stronger.
Where's he from?
He is from Ponte Verde, Florida.
This is third year there.
Yeah, it's his third year here.
Did he transfer from a small school?
I believe he did, but he was a walk-on, and it just seems like to me when I watch Perry Orth in the huddle, he seems to have that moxie in his body language you want to see in a starting quarterback.
Sure.
I'm not sure if Mitch just doesn't exude that, but he has it internally. But I just haven't seen that command of a huddle out of him yet. I'm not saying he can't get it, and he doesn't have it yet. But I was expecting him to be a little further along in his development now, entering his third year at school.
He's going to have to do a decent job because they cannot depend on the Wildcat formation no matter who they put back there. They used 2 or 3 different people last week, yeah. And you can't just do that constantly in the Southeastern Conference.
Yeah. And one thing that might have hurt Mitch's development is that there really just hasn't been wide receivers step up outside of Pharaoh Cooper yet in 2 games. He's really been it in the passing game. I know Jarrell Adams had that long catch from Orth for a touchdown, but outside of that, he really hasn't either had the opportunities to be open or he hasn't made the catches. The other 2 receivers that have been starting, Tyshawn Samuel is a redshirt freshman out of Chapman over the
I didn't realize he was from Chapman.
He's been battling injury apparently, and then the other person is a walk-on. And then the other person is a redshirt senior who, the younger brother of Alshon Jeffrey, who quite frankly just has never stepped up to that level yet. And, give him credit, he's already got his degree. And he's done what he needed to do at school. So, but as far as a football standpoint, he hasn't developed to that level yet. And at this point, I don't think you can expect him to reach that level as a redshirt senior.
Yeah.
Offensive line, I thought, looked good. They've looked good in 2 games, I thought. So, running game was serviceable at times. But there's a lot of issues heading into this week at Georgia.
They've beaten Georgia, 4 of the last 5?
Yeah, for some reason they know how to beat Georgia, but we can't beat Kentucky or Vanderbilt consistently. So I think Georgia is definitely going to be a challenge. If the defense starts out like it did in the first half, Nick Chubb will run all over them. But if they can string together a game like they did the second half against Kentucky and the second half against North Carolina, I think they'll have a shot to keep the offense in somewhat striking distance.
The thing is, if they are not real good early, Chubb and what's that other guy's name? Marcel?
Sonny Michel.
Okay, between the 2 of them, they can put the game out of reach before you get warmed up.
Yes, it is. And everyone has forgotten their third running back.
Keith Marshall, who, coming out of high school, a lot of us that thought Marshall might be better than Gurley.
Yes, and he's battled injury.
Constant injury.
But I think it's funny people have completely forgotten about Keith Marshall and how good he is. So
surely the defensive coordinators in Columbia haven't forgotten him.
I sure hope they haven't, but they got to worry about Nick Chubb too. And that guy, the sad part is Carolina had a shot to get him, and they missed out on it. So
yeah.
And Nick Chubb reminds me a lot of Marcus Latimer. Not quite as tall, but he still runs with that head forward mentality where he doesn't really go down for negative yardage ever. And again, and to finish up with Georgia, their defense, led by Jeremy Pruitt, so they should be pretty solid on defense. So, in all honesty, I'm not expecting to win this week for Carolina at all. If they can keep it within 20 points, I'll be somewhat happy. But
down there between them hedges now.
That's gonna be a tough one. And that is a tough environment to play in.
Yeah, it's a tough. It's just a tough place to go down there. It's tough to go down there, and they know you're a visiting broadcaster. I've been there, done that with Jim Phillips and the Clemson Broadcasting that we used to do, and they make it hard on you. The fans do when they see you coming in and all these kind of things. And they knew Jim, didn't know me, but it was that was a long time ago. All right, now. Remember, we're recording this a day before Clemson travels to Louisville, and that is the game that, as a Clemson fan, I have been dreading all year. Clemson does not do well on Thursday night games on the road. Now, Louisville has lost a couple of ball games. Probably should not have lost either one of them in reality. Well, maybe the first one with Auburn.
Yeah, I think Auburn was definitely a better
but they
team.
Certainly were not supposed to lose the second ball game.
Yeah, that loss to Houston was a little bit surprising.
But Houston throws the ball around and run it wide open stuff, and
they have Texas athletes, and three-star guys out of Texas are probably as good as some 5-stars in some other states.
Sure.
So there's definitely talent at Houston, but regardless, Louisville should still win that game because they're in the ACC. That's a bigger conference. They should have a bigger talent pool than Houston, but you got to play with what you got.
But, all right, they're going to go up there with their center, Norton, not dressed out. Clemson is. He got hurt. He's been hurt several times. Guillermo is the backup center, and he has his own problems. Seems to me like he's a lower body injury that he's had a year or so ago or something. He's been there. And then a guy who hasn't played will be the backup center. I don't know. This game last year, this is the game that Clemson's quarterback Deshaun Watson stiff-armed a face mask and broke a finger on his throwing hand. And that affected you for a long time. Yeah. So this game is a touchy situation, and this may, like I say, day after tomorrow, we could come in here and record the show and have some answers there, or we could wait till Sunday and we'll know about all of them. But this is a game, if you're a Clemson fan, that you need to actually fear, because you're cocky, you beat a couple of people, and anyway, you're on the road. I'm sure, I don't know what time, they probably left about noon today and went up there. So, anyway, a lot of things going on. Now, here's another big game that I have a lot of interest in, and that's that Alabama-Mississippi game.
That would be interesting.
Because some people think that Mississippi is as good as Alabama, and, of course, Clemson fans can remember Chad Kelly. There was never anything wrong with Chad Kelly's talent and abilities. He just had some problems that he never quite got over the hump of not being the star when he was here.
It seemed like it was a lot of maturity on his part that he just didn't have at that time, but you are right. There was no doubt in his talent, and he has shown that he is talented in the first few games at Ole Miss.
Big, strong guy, can move, and those sort of things. And I heard some of the pundits on ESPN saying that Alabama has some trouble with the mobile quarterback, which Clemson's always had that trouble, too. Mobile quarterback. Carolina beat them because those 5 in a row, because the quarterbacks that Carolina had at the time could move with the football in their hands without throwing it. And so that is the kind of thing that I see there. Among those, I don't know what's any big games of interest this week. Oh, Notre Dame, Georgia Tech.
That'll be that's a rematch of an old national title game from decades ago. Correct?
Oh, yeah, right.
We'll get the Rudy matchup as well. That's the
right. But Georgia Tech is just rolling, but they haven't really played any tough opponents, and they run that crazy offense. And although all teams cut block some, that's all they ever do is cut block. And I think there's so much wariness and defensive linemen that it actually works mentally on them sometimes.
Yeah, it is.
And the coaches say, assignment football, don't do this, don't move. Well, it's tough.
Mm-hmm.
So Notre Dame now having to break in a new quarterback. They are going against an extremely good offense with Georgia Tech. We don't know how the defense is. But that game, I think it's a toss-up.
I think so. Georgia Tech, Paul Johnson, he's one of those coaches where if there is one guy on your defensive line that is a weakness for you, they'll keep picking at him the entire game.
And see, he calls the game himself by the fly.
Yeah.
He doesn't. I think maybe somebody upstairs talks in a headphone and tells him, well, that guy, like you're talking about, that guy right there, he's moving here or there. All right, we'll run this, we'll run that, and just get it done.
It's a lot like
2 years ago he was on the hot seat.
Yes, he was, and now he's the best. Now he's got a team that I think could probably win the ACC.
Oh
this year.
yeah.
It's interesting to see Georgia Tech and Clemson find themselves in similar situations this weekend. I think neither team has really played that tough a competition.
Right.
To be honest, Georgia Tech did what they needed to do, and Clemson won their game. So you got to give them credit for that, and they won them pretty big. But I don't think they had a lot of questions answered, especially like Clemson, where they play Wofford and App State. I'm not sure how many questions you have answered after a game like that.
You're right. And both these other schools that we're talking about, Notre Dame
they
struggled and pulled it out against a pretty good Virginia team, evidently.
Yeah, I mean, Virginia, not the toughest team in the world,
right.
But they, that's not a cupcake either. But
right.
And then, of course, Louisville, as we mentioned, they
opened
with Auburn, which that's going to answer a lot of questions for you. And then they played really probably one of the tougher non-Power 5 teams in Houston. So I think we know what Louisville has. We have an idea of what Clemson has.
Yeah.
We know they have Deshaun Watson. We know they have some very talented athletes in the skill positions.
We know they don't have a lot of depth on defense.
We know that, and we're not sure the quality of that first-string defense because they haven't really been tested yet.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure how good their offensive line is because Mitch Hyatt, I know he's talented. He hasn't really faced anyone yet that can blow him off the ball.
Last year at this time, he was playing high school ball.
And so and who is the defensive coordinator now for Louisville? Is that the Todd Grantham?
Yeah, came from Georgia.
He
always knew how to handle Clemson when he was at Georgia.
Yes, so that's something I think you're going to have to watch is does Todd Grantham go after Mitch Hyatt? Does he send blitz packages and stunts and other things to confuse him to really disrupt that side of the line?
And what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to depend on somebody that may have to change some formations and get him some help with an end over there or assign a blocker out of the backfield for him.
They may have to. But still, you have to imagine Clemson still has all that talent at the skill position. So that may be enough to offset any questions they have on the offensive line right now. But it's still definitely I'm with you. If I was Clemson, I'd be worried about this game because it is, as you said before, not typically the best performances you get on Thursday nights. It's at Louisville, so that's a long trip. It's also a time change a little bit, so you have to adjust to that.
Yeah.
And people that have never done it before, you wouldn't believe how hard an hour to adjust to can be sometimes because it will throw you off. I've done it before.
Yeah, me too.
I've done it a few times, and it's even harder when you go to Jamaica because the sun doesn't set till almost 9 o'clock at night.
Right.
But I think it'd be good. And again, back to Georgia Tech, that's going to be a tough game for them as well because I don't think they've played a defense as big or as physical as Notre Dame is going to have. So it should be a good week of college football and a good Friday night for us here.
Absolutely. Lake Morris has been with us. Lake and the Anderson Independent Mail do a great job in covering high school sports, and you can keep informed by simply getting in with the Anderson Independent Mail. I do a real good job on college with the three main colleges that we're concerned with here, and that being Clemson, South Carolina, and Georgia. And so I kind of keep up with them at that time. And that's about all I've got to say, Lake. You got anything to add toward the end?
Anyone making the trip down to Georgia this weekend, or anyone making the trip out to Louisville? Drive safe. Be careful.